Alrighty. Well, hello and welcome to the first episode of the 6 Degrees podcast. My name is Zachary Lefebvre and I'm your host. Thank you for joining me on my podcast journey as I set out to have small conversations with tons of inspiring people, including musicians, small business owners, digital artists, and maybe I'll even get my mom on the pod. We are bare bones here for the first episode, but I thought why not just dive headfirst into the realm of podcasts and learn and grow along the way. In my 6 degrees, I know there are tons of first-class humans, and I figured it would be a great way to tap into the network, hear stories from all these talented individuals, and talk about the big plays they're making. The main goal of the podcast is to connect people, whether it be working together or just connecting with sentiments of the pod. I aim to fill these segments with fun and lighthearted conversation while diving deeper into our guests' minds. And first on the 6 Degrees podcast, we have Kyle Lewis. Hello, Kyle.
What's up, Zach?
Hello. Kyle is a musician, producer, and all-around wonderful human, and he produces music as Cromulon. So I just wanted to thank you for taking the time and for being here on the inaugural podcast.
It's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, honored.
So for listeners just tuning in who may not have heard of you, can you paint us a picture of Kyle Lewis outside of music? Where are you from? What are your earliest memories of falling in love with music? And tell us a little bit about your musical background.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Kyle. I grew up in Colorado, small mountain town in Colorado. And it's pretty rural area, beautiful spot. And honestly, I've always been in love with music. I don't actually have a definitive moment where I knew that I fell in love with it. I was trying to think back on some memories that I have, and I just remember always loving it from, my parents throwing on some like oldies and me like playing air guitar in our living room with a sunken living room next to it. So it kind of was like a little makeshift stage, and honestly, it always just really got me just excited from a very early age. I would just feel the energy and the potency of music. It would just take me over from a young age. And so it's always stuck with me. I've kind of always thought that it was going to be what I do. And it's kind of just always been what I've been doing, for better or worse.
It is a tough industry to break through in, but honestly, yes. I feel like if anything can, support that, it's a deep love for doing it. So I think it just must be ingrained in who you are. Can you tell us a little bit about like your musical background, how you got into production, maybe first instruments that you played, stuff along those lines?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I came at production from a somewhat unique angle, where as the vast majority of my life, I was just a performer, a live performer, playing in bands mostly. I started in my teens playing guitar, enjoyed that pretty quickly, just learning power chords and playing punk songs. That was the first music that really triggered the teenage angst and just like opened the floodgates of the electrical energy that overcomes you when you're into music. And then quickly, in my later years of high school, I switched over to playing piano. And I did that because everyone I knew played guitar and most of them were better than me. And no one played piano. And I found that I could play the music in my head easier on the piano than I ever could on the guitar. Something about seeing it linearly in front of me just made more sense, I still play stringed instruments at times, but have still never really found my flow like I did with the keys. And so yeah, ever since then, I've just kind of been more oriented towards being a piano player. I've also really what drew me to the keys was the Hammond B3 organ. Um, More than the piano, the actual piano, the Hammond B3 organ, the church organ that everyone has heard. And it's been in all the funk and soul albums ever since and gospel, and it's quite a ubiquitous sound, but it's just heavenly, specifically through the Leslie speaker, the spinning speaker with the Doppler effect. And you know, never been like a religious man, I'm a spiritual man, but for whatever reason, that sound just like really pulled pulled on me, you know. It's quite a heavenly sound. So that's what also kind of like really got me into playing the keys. And then that kind of like transitioned. I got out of the kind of teenage angst phase of my life, and experimented with like psychedelics and stuff, and that inevitably pulled me into the like fusion funk soul of the 1970s, and like doing the whole Pink Floyd rite of passage, and then pretty quickly getting into jam bands like the Grateful Dead and Fish and Zappa too, and just kind of there's that whole renaissance in my life that I think a lot of young people go through. Um, and through all that, I've pulled inspiration from all those points with the music that I create today. But the music of the 1970s and the fusion of jazz and soul music that came out when like Herbie Hancock was doing Headhunters and Miles Davis was doing Bitches Brew and everything, and just kind of that era has always stuck with me as some of the most amazing music. To this day, I still think that's the best music that's ever been created. um, and so I spent a big part of my life, the majority of my time as a musician, um, kind of playing in different funk and jam bands as a keyboard player, sometimes singing, sometimes not. Always got off on composition, influenced a lot by like Fish and Frank Zappa, and just kind of like the weird um, changes, quirky stuff that kind of catches you off guard. You're in the middle of a dance move and you are forced to throw in an extra beat or something. Little heady shit like that just kind of got me off. And so uh yeah, so I played in a bunch of jam bands, kind of doing that sort of thing. Um and then 2018, 2019, maybe 2017, I had a band that I had been playing in for quite a while, had just really poured my heart and soul into it. And it had, and then because of interpersonal stuff, which often happens within bands, if you're a musician, that's the hardest part about being in a band is staying in a band. Like being a musician, learning all that, you know, E minor 7 flat 5, piece of cake. But hanging out with four other weird artists day in and day out is difficult.
Yeah.
And so I had a band that kind of like fell apart at that time, and I was like, man, I just lost 3 years of my life. I didn't. I gleaned a lot of learning experiences from that and got better in a lot of ways. But that was kind of the thing that stuck with me, and I was like, I'd always kind of liked I'd always liked electronic music. I'd always had a cracked version of Ableton on my computer. I don't know if I can say that. I'd have to edit that out. I pay for it now. Don't worry.
We'll put a little seagull blooper over it.
About that time, I kind of really I discovered the floozies, which I'm sure we might talk about later when we talk about influences and stuff. But I realized there's this hybrid thing starting to happen of electronic music and live music, and I didn't really think people would like that for some reason. And then I saw them kind of do it, and there's been other projects that have done it, Sun Squabby, and even Pretty Lights, and many electronic producers have included live instruments many times. But for whatever reason, the floozies really were the little aha moment for me. And I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of have it all. I can do production. I can bring these wompy, cool, like really um, fun, expressive sounds that you can get through production and synthesis and having 1,000 channels of serum, if you want at your fingertips, or sampling 1,000 didgeridoos at once, a legion of didgeridoos, if you will. But then still have the live element of improv that I have really loved from day one, from like studying jazz and listening to the Grateful Dead and stuff. And so at that point, I was like, I'm just going to create a band that's just me, and I'm going to produce music, and I'm going to play my keys, and I'm just going to hire on my friends to play with me, you know? And then so if something falls through, it's like it's my project, to some degree. I really also try to not like be a tyrant of it at all. And I really love it when people come in and play with me. I'm always open for their influence on the music to come through. But I knew that if someone really fell off the wagon or something, that it would be okay still in a project that I had created, and I was like the main creative force behind. So long story short, that's kind of how Cromulon was birthed. And then I just dove into Ableton and just really kind of did a deep dive, watched all the YouTube tutorials, all the Mr. Bill tutorials, the Bill Gates shit, all that stuff that I think probably lots of producers have watched, like 10 years ago or whatever, and still today they're relevant. And I was just like, okay, this is my new canvas. This is my new place to start putting creative energy. And I loved it, So
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to you, having played in multiple bands and having one of them, not work out, sometimes things like that could be a blessing in disguise. And
Yeah.
it seems like I mean, absolutely have that kind of outlook towards it, which is really great. As you said earlier, music kind of just runs through your being. So whether or not it was with the band, which you still like to play, but being able to kind of spearhead things and have kind of control of where things are going, and if things aren't going in a way that you have the ability to kind of just like get the reins and navigate it towards something that where you want or what you believe in. I think it's all part of the journey, but what an interesting journey it has been. So it's
Yeah.
really cool to hear all of that and to learn about that. Where do you see the Cromulon project going, having seen it be born that way, and having it had developed and kind of with that aha movie or moment with the floozies? How do you see like live shows going? How do you see production going? More album based or just kind of whatever songs fit into an EP? Um, can you kind of speak more to that?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, it's just jazz over here, baby. We're doing improv every day, you know? And so I don't really know where we'll end up. And I think that's the beauty of this, but I'm certainly, at the helm. And right now I'm really getting excited about the live aspect of it. Writing the music, of course, is amazing. And I get a lot of joy and fulfillment out of that as well. And offering up a polished EP, fully mastered and just, that's a great feeling. And that's how most of the masses are going to encounter Cromulon for their first time. So that's very important, but I really do think the magic comes from the live show and the degree of improv that I can inject in between these highly orchestrated drops of, lots of complex synthesis and sound design and stuff. I really like to have moments where we can open it up to an indeterminate amount of time to explore a little bit. So I'm really excited to just be bringing on more musicians, getting deeper in with the musicians that I have been working with. Recently, a new guy joined the project, John Johns, who's an awesome renaissance man of a musician. He's a guitar player and a drummer. bassist as well, singer. He can do it all, but he's going to be coming on to be playing drums and guitar. So we can have sort of like a modular thing where he could be playing drums in for some tracks or for some sets. You know, some sets are going to lend themselves better to us having a drum kit, and some are going to be, you know, opening slots maybe for a larger act. We're just going to piss them off if we set up a drum kit, start miking it up. So, you know, it's just, you know, John's hop on the guitar, you know. And horns, you know, I really want to start working with some horn players more, because I incorporate horns in a lot of my produced music. It's just an amazing texture that I love. It's probably one of my favorite instruments, is just 4-piece horn section, 3-piece horn section, you know. So incorporating more horn players is something that I'm really excited to get into. And I think just people just love seeing someone blow on a horn, and it just brings such a vibe, you know. So
It's true. I
yeah.
I can confirm being in a crowd and just really, really having my experience elevated by a horn section, whether it's a sax or trombone or anything along those lines,
Oh,
really just kind of like, makes the performance in your face, and, live the sound resonates differently. And I think it's just another super exciting thing. And yeah, I know I've never seen you live, but hearing the way that you envision all the live sets, and that's an aspect of Cromulon that you're really excited about, makes me very
mhm.
excited about it as well.
All right, baby. Yeah.
Alrighty, so earlier in the interview, you mentioned that you are a composer, and I was wondering, how does that shape your workflow and production process?
Yeah, absolutely. It influences it immensely. I feel like oftentimes, and I do this at times, and I have no strong opinions either way, but when you start with sample-based music production, that first couple samples or whatever really sets the tone for the melodic and harmonic components. And not that it takes away any degree of authenticity from it, but it really kind of like sets the first shade on the canvas, if you will. Um, and I do that at times, but since I have spent a huge part of my life, you know, learning the actual instrument of any keyed instrument, I in my music, if you hear any keyed instrument, I'm playing it live. The melody is something that really absolutely came from the heart, came from the moment, and is the music that was in my head transposed out into the digital realm. Um, so I think that's a pretty unique part of Cromulon. And you know, given the wonders of MIDI and VSTs and digital instruments, which have become quite compelling these days, um, you know, I can use my skills as a pianist to play pretty much any instrument in quite high fidelity. I use a VST Omnisphere often, which is my CPU hates it, but it creates just really compelling sounds of all sorts of acoustic instruments. So in my music, I am less sample based and more inspirational in the moment based for sure.
Well, that's an interesting way that being a composer influences the way that you make music. I think, and that just seems like the more natural process for you, and maybe even just like, it's just becomes an extension of yourself at that point, and you can kind of fill in around the edges with everything. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I want to get to you. Very exciting. Well, you released your first debut album, Future Fi, in 2021, which everybody can listen to on their favorite streaming platform. But you are releasing your next EP, the Aeon, on February 22nd, which is just around the corner. Very exciting. Can you share a little bit about the EP and the self-titled single coming out?
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's been a minute since I put out music. And I've very much been on a soul journey since then. Have had, as the universe does, will just kind of put opportunities of growth and expansion in front of you, and oftentimes they take precedence over other things in your life. And I have really had to do that the last few years, really do a lot of soul searching, a lot of healing of, childhood trauma and forgiveness of myself and others and cultivating a deep love for myself. And um, it has felt like an aeon in my life. And it is encapsulated in this music that I have created during that time. Um, the concept of the Aeon in general is something that I've always found quite fascinating. The term Aeon itself comes from um, Egyptian um, mythology, and it is, liken it to the Aeon or an epoch or any great stretch of time. Um, but it's not just the time, it's the character of that time, and Egyptian iconography and the great pyramids and just all that has always just been deeply, deeply fascinating to me. It's the greatest mystery, I think, that we have on Earth. And I am often surprised at how it seems like many people don't really uh, think too hard about it, but it's always not too far from my consciousness. And so I've always really loved Egyptian mythology, and there were aeons in their lineage, and they really were indicative of the great kind of religious beliefs. You had like the Isis Aeon, the Osiris Aeon, the Horus Aeon, the patriarchal, the matriarchal, and like the son of them both, like in Horus to Jesus, if you want, or whatever. Um, and on top of that, the Aeon is a card in the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck, um, 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 that has influenced me, tarot deck, I should say. And he had believed that there's this new eon of self-actualization that we are moving out of in humanity, not bound by the tyranny of Abrahamic, saying it wrong, religions, all based upon Abraham, the three major religions that exist in the world today. And that we're having this great awakening in humanity of stepping into the role of the like creator God within our own life. And the last few years of my life have been very indicative of that, and having to own my stuff, having to own my own trauma that was given to me without being, I was never asked if I wanted it, but now it is my duty to heal it. I've had to self-actualize myself in so many ways to get in there and do the good work that I'm really trying to do. And that in a lot of ways is this album and is this music, and it's why I make music. Um, but that work, the work on myself, is what I'm here to do. And it is more important to me to do that than even making music. It is what I am here to do as a multidimensional being incarnate in universe C137. um, but music has always, circling back even to how, what music is in my life, it's always been such a potent thing for me to get myself out of myself, to have these amazing cathartic experiences that have moved me and initiated immense change in my life, an immense introspection of myself and the universe and the cosmos and space-time and all these things. And so as I have done this work and will continue to do this work, because I will never be done at this work, and I will never be a perfect fucking ascended light being. I will always be a human with imperfections, beautiful imperfections. And music is, I think, the best way I can help other people have those sorts of cathartic experiences and instigate deep introspection. And so that is kind of what music is to me, and that is what this album is to me, and it's very much a representation of the journey that I've been on. And I think it's there in the music. My music is kind of all over the place, and it's sometimes too much for some people, you know? And it for that reason um encapsulates the journey that I've been on that has been so dynamic and had so many beautiful moments of peace and tranquility and anguish and intensity. And especially the self-titled track, the Aeon, the first track, I think has all those elements, you know, really built into it. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we're going to be able to have more talks about it because it's easy to see that you channel a lot of your life experiences and everything seems to manifest in music as your tool. So that is just super exciting and kind of just winding down here in the last like minute and a half quickly. If you could kind of just any exciting projects you have in the works for fans new and old to make them excited for another year of Cromulon.
Absolutely. After all the singles for the Aeon are out and the full release of the EP is out, I'm actually going to be releasing another EP of some flips that I've done of some soul music, some 70s soul music that is so near and dear to my heart and has really started me on my musical journey. And I've really enjoyed taking some of those soulful tunes from the past and then injecting the wubs into them. And so that's going to be the next thing on the horizon. So look out for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really do look forward to diving into more of Cromulon, and very excited just to see all the new work, the new projects you're working on, to see the live show come into fruition, and just really appreciate you taking some time to speak with me tonight. I'm excited to put this out and have people get Cromulon on their radar.
It's a pleasure, Zach. Seriously, thanks for having me, man.
You're welcome. I'll see you next time.
Peace.